You know, I haven't seen anything like this in my life. And I wonder, now, are people going nuts? Australians, at least when I was younger, used to be famous for keeping a cool head, for saying things like, she'll be right, and no worries, settle down. But now, it's like Australians have turned into panic merchants, hysterics. On Wednesday, I mentioned just one example, the incredible apocalyptic talk earlier this week about the New South Wales fires. The headlines, the worst bushfire conditions ever, unprecedented. The danger was as bad as it gets. The week would be catastrophic, absolutely catastrophic. Look, the fires were bad, but catastrophic? I mean, the top temperature in Sydney on Tuesday, this catastrophic worst ever day, was 37. That's not even 100 on the old Fahrenheit scale. When it hit the century, we thought it was starting to get hot. Now it's catastrophic. And it's like we're all goldfish. We don't have any memory at all. Yesterday, the heat wave doesn't... So each new heat wave, unprecedented. Never seen anything like it before. And that's how people go crazy when we talk like that, when we lose our heads. That's why kids are crying in the street thinking the world's about to end.
What's going to happen to the whole world if no one does anything?
Now that's one kind of crazy, this Chicken Little, skies falling in business. And then there's the sheer irrationality we now see. Like the former fire chiefs yesterday claimed that Australia wouldn't have these bushfires if we just stopped emitting so much carbon dioxide, as if tiny Australia could suddenly make the world so cold that never again will we get bushfires in November.
Must be real action on climate change, rather than emissions going up every year for the last 5 years.
It's not just with global warming that you're seeing this total unreason to the point of insanity, of course. It's, you know, where we see this end of the she'll be right kind of coolness that we used to have, the, you know, no worries attitude, the pull your head in level-headedness that I used to think was typically Australian. Now it seems that we've become a country, well, I actually read yesterday that our federal politicians, this is a mark of the unreason now, our federal politicians, they've got a new book club going. I'm all in favour of reading books, do it a lot myself. And this book club includes the Education Minister. But guess what? Their first recommendation, it's a book that we pulled apart on the show on Tuesday. I'll do a column for the newspapers next Monday about it, so look out for it. It's called Dark Emu, this book, the one that our politicians recommend, and it's by an amateur historian, Bruce Pascoe, who's claimed for years that is Aboriginal, through his mother's grandmother, is said. But as I showed you on the show, genealogists have gone through Pascoe's family history, what they've found, all his relatives actually come originally from Britain. Not a single Aboriginal great-grandmother or Aborigines anywhere, really. And as for his big nose, some people say, oh, that looks Aboriginal. Well, forget it. That's inherited from his Cornish great-grandfather. Now, of course, I might be wrong about Pascoe's family tree, but Pascoe wouldn't respond when I asked him to tell me just which of his ancestors was actually Aboriginal. He told me he wouldn't come on the show either to discuss all this. As for his book, I mean, you've got to be kidding. He claims Aborigines were not primitive hunter-gatherers, as every historian has said up to now, but in fact they were sophisticated farmers with huge granaries above ground, tilled the fields, miles of farmland. Who knew? When did they stop doing that then? As I showed you on Tuesday, Pascoe in fact misquoted and misrepresented his sources, and very badly, and often. Yet this book by this Aborigine is now recommended by our politicians. Can you believe it? Been given awards by the New South Wales Premier too. Now it's going to be made into a two-part history series and shown by the ABC next year. I mean, it's state-sponsored madness. We're going hysterical, and hysterics are even starring on the ABC our national broadcaster now, hysterics calling on women to actually murder men and calling on Aborigines to burn stuff. Just last week, here, the ABC.
People have resorted to violence as a way to finally break through and get heard and achieve what we need. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
How many rapists must we kill? Not the state, because I disagree with the death penalty, and I want to get rid of incarceration, and I'm with you on the police. So I want women themselves.
I think if anyone's shocked by what Mona's suggesting, you just have to look back to history and a certain faction of the suffragettes in the early 20th century. They used violence.
I think violence, I think violence is okay. I'm really articulate. No amount of that is going to save you. So,
It's a tricky
burn stuff.
Can you believe that? It's now a week and a half later since all that, and the ABC still can't tell you whether broadcasting calls to violence like that, unchallenged, no one challenged it, still can't tell you whether it's actually bad. That's wild. That's the national broadcaster today. I tell you, we've lost our marbles. Australia's becoming a madhouse. But back to the fires, because really they seem to have smoked out some of the crazier people among us. People like the Greens. People mad enough to believe that the Prime Minister personally caused these fires or made them worse by personally not changing the weather. I mean, it's not just mad, it's vicious. Yeah, because that's another change we're seeing, the viciousness. Have a listen.
This government has had every opportunity to minimise the risk of these catastrophic fires, and instead it has chosen to pour fuel on the fire.
You are no better than a bunch of arsonists. Borderline arsonists.
Senator Steele-John.
And you should be ashamed.
God. If I heard that stuff in an asylum, I'd say, oh, it's a full moon out there. But these guys are actually in our parliament, an Australian parliament. Australia, which used to, have people of such eminent common sense, the Henry Lawsons and the Banjo Pattersons. We lived in the period of Robert Menzies and all that. Where's all that gone? Tell you what, she's not right at all. And to finish the week, more craziness. With that edge of madness or nastiness that's now so very modern. An activist, an anti-domestic violence, held a press conference with Green Senator Larissa Waters, who initially defended her, by the way, before backing off and disowning her. They held a press conference together where this activist suggested that the thousands of firefighters risking their lives this week to help others could in fact be wife bashers. Watch out.
After a cataclysmic event like this, domestic violence peaks. Women become extremely unsafe when generally the men return home from the fires and subject them to domestic violence.
She too, like Bruce Pascoe, misquoted her sources. There's no research about firefighters particularly being wife bashers, and when she tweeted some evidence to support what she was saying, it didn't include anything about firefighters particularly. But who cares? Who cares? I mean, we're all post-truth now. It's all postmodernism. Truth is just a social construct. You can damn well say what you like. As long as you generate anger and headlines and retweets and publicity, who cares if you look like a chook with his head cut off? Heads cut off. When I was a kid, one of my favourite poems was by Rudyard Kipling called If. Lots of school kids used to be taught that one back then. Now it's so old-fashioned. Maybe you know the poem. It starts like this. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, and then it ends, you'll be a man, my son. Now I wonder, is this a country that's now running short of men and women of sense? If you've got any ideas how we can pull this back, get some sense back into public life, email me. No worries.